Greetings, I'm Herbert Erpaderp, and today we're going to uncover the mystery of what's in this box. It could possibly be the amusing hobby Neubaufahrzeug, which I'm sure I've said perfectly and have not insulted the Germans with my perfect pronunciation. This thing is an unusual and, in my opinion, allegedly, a kind of silly-looking vehicle, so it's right up my alley.
Less waffle! Show us the plastic!
The lower hull consists largely of a single tub part, which is nice. It should help make sure that the rest of the tank is all neat and straight, which is what we want. Same goes for the upper hull. This single part is going to be easier to deal with than if it were a whole bunch of plates and rings and things. I'm not going to count them, but there's some pretty good rivet detail here too. This seems to be the commander's cupola. It was loose in the box and I was kind of worried that it may have fallen off of a sprue, but the sprue guide in the instructions tells us this is its own piece, so it's meant to just be rolling around by itself. There's quite a few sprues in this box, far too many for old Herbert to count. That's why I do these what's in the box videos. It helps keep the build videos a bit shorter. Sure, I could be talking about the parts instead of waffling, and maybe I'll do that. All the parts in this kit look quite good. I wasn't able to find any defects, but that doesn't mean there are none, just that if there are any, they're not obvious to me. I'm pretty sure everything here is fine. It looks like everything is neat, and I don't think there's going to be too much cleanup beyond the nubbins left after clipping the parts off the sprues. There are mold lines, of course, that is pretty much unavoidable. What I'm saying though is I don't anticipate spending too much time removing them. There's a lot of small parts here, and small parts with an excess of mold lines is always a drag. That's not really a concern here though. There are a lot of small parts to be sure. That does mean it's probably not going to be a super quick build, which is fine. That's just getting a lot of hobby time for the price of the kit. It also usually means that the kit is going to be pretty well detailed. I think that's going to be the case here. I'm no Neubaufahrzeug surgeon, so I'm not going to pretend to know exactly how realistic and accurate any of the detailing in this kit is, but you can see there's a lot of bits of doodadery here. As a model it looks really good, and there's a lot of detail that should be, if not enjoyable to build, at least fun and interesting to paint. And while there are a lot of small parts, things like the turrets are large single parts. That's going to speed things up and, like I said before, ensure that the model is mostly neat and straight and all aligned properly. The plastic here seems like it's pretty good quality. It's not flimsy like some of the plastic in some kits is. That's good because the parts are stronger, though on the other hand, the more rigid the plastic is, the more likely thin parts are to snap, so that's probably something to be careful of. I suppose you should probably be careful with all thin parts anyway, because they're thin, and the thinness also makes them prone to breakage. Also, it's probably worth pointing out that some of these sprues seem to have bolt details that you're supposed to shave off the sprue and put onto the model. I'm not a big fan of that, personally. The carpet monster quite likes those, and I don't like the carpet monster. I haven't looked at the instructions too closely yet, so those might not actually be needed in this kit, but they are there, so they probably are. Here's some more small parts. Some of these do seem to have some fairly hefty mold lines and a bit of flash, but this is, as you can probably see, not very common in this kit. You can see on this tool sprue that there's no obvious flash. There is lots of nice, good-looking tools and accessories though. I guess, as is often the case with these videos, I don't really have a lot to say, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It does kind of mean there isn't anything super great to grab my attention on every sprue, but it also means there wasn't anything awfully bad that grabs my attention either. Nothing horrible that I think needs to be pointed out. It's one of those kits where, looking at the parts, it seems like it's all going to fit together nicely, and the main challenge is going to be some of the tiny parts, and just the time that it takes to put those parts on, rather than the kind of challenge where the kit fights you the whole time. I'm really not anticipating much of a fight at all here. The main thing on this sprue is, hopefully, something helpful. It's a jig for the tracks. I think jigs are good, but sometimes they're just not as helpful as you want them to be. I guess we'll find out about this one soon enough. Here's the tracks. I would say they look pretty good. Obviously, I've left them in the bag. I really didn't want to lose any of them. If you want a closer look, you'll have to wait for the build stream, or the build video, if you can wait that long. These here are less exciting to see. Track pins. These are not only tiny, but they also mean that the tracks don't just clip together, which means track assembly is going to be fiddly, and these tiny fiddly pins are probably going to be pretty prone to finding their way down the carpet monster's gullet. There's a few clear parts here, and they're pretty much what you would expect. Vision devices, lenses for lights, that sort of thing. There's also some photo etch.
Oh boy, your favourite!
It certainly is, and there are 2 frets of photo etch, and it looks like the bending points are etched into the parts, which I do always appreciate. I just don't really enjoy the photo etch process. I'm sure some of you do, and I don't know, good for you I guess. Like a lot of kits, decals are included, and there's a few different markings here. I obviously haven't used them yet, but they look decent to me. And finally, the instructions. This is the booklet type, which I'm fond of. There's a bunch of words, and a sprue guide, which can be helpful if you think you're missing a part, or if there's a cupola rolling around in the box and you don't think it should be. You can check here. As I probably mentioned earlier, I haven't studied the instructions carefully, as they probably say to do somewhere, mostly because I'm just not going to remember anything when I get around to building this anyway, but the diagrams do seem pretty well laid out and easy to understand and follow. There's a few smaller pop-out diagrams for some of the smaller sub-assemblies, which is almost certainly going to be very helpful. If there are any real issues with the instructions, not just Herbert didn't pay enough attention problems, I will mention it in the build video. I'm not anticipating any issues though. Anyway, that's what's in the box. I think this is going to be a pretty fun kit, and I'll certainly have fun trying to say its name while I'm working on it. When am I going to start building this? Well, that depends. I do have to finish building the tack on Burger Panther first, and I'll probably build something quick and simple after that, just as a kind of break or treat or whatever you want to call it, but I will need to build something after that. It could be this kit. I'm going to put it up for a vote for patrons. Your choices are this Neubaufahrzeug or the Dragon Dicamax, the What's in the Box video for which I've uploaded at the same time as this one. You should be able to find a link in the description below. There is also, obviously, an accompanying poll over on Patreon, so go and vote. I am looking forward to building both kits pretty much equally, so it is kind of difficult to choose one. That's why there's a poll. There will eventually be a build video for this, or the Dicamax, which will appear at some point in the future. That's generally how time works. If you can't wait for that, you are hereby invited to come watch me build it live. It will be a Wednesday night's build, local time of course, both here on YouTube and over on Twitch. My schedule over on Twitch will even convert to your local time. How convenient. Okay, that's probably enough waffling from me. If you've got any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comments section below. Subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of thing, and if you really like what I do, and you want to take part in the poll, consider supporting on Patreon or Ko-fi. Links are in the description. Take care of yourselves, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.